We were just playing a game, or at least, that's what I told myself. The rules were simple, nothing too serious, just a harmless dare between us. But as the game progressed, it became clear that what started as fun was spiraling into something far more intense, something I wasn't prepared for. It all began one night, like any other. A group of us had gathered in my apartment, the air thick with the scent of takeout food and the faint hum of music playing in the background. It was meant to be a lighthearted evening, just some drinks, maybe a few embarrassing dares, and lots of laughs. We were all in our 20s, full of energy, no one taking anything too seriously. Or so I thought. And then, he walked in. Jason, my best friend's boyfriend. A guy I'd known for years, but until that night, had never looked at twice. I don't know what changed in that moment. Maybe it was the way his eyes locked onto mine, or how the tension in the room shifted the second he stepped through the door. But suddenly, the game felt different. My heartbeat quickened, and for the first time that night, I felt a flutter of something unfamiliar. Something dangerous. "Let's make it interesting," Jason said with a grin as he tossed a card onto the table. The dare game we were playing was nothing new, but his tone, there was something in it that felt different, charged with an energy that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. My best friend, Sam, glanced at me with a smile that I knew too well. The kind of smile that told me she was about to push me into something ridiculous. "All right, let's hear it, Jason," she said, leaning in a little closer, her eyes glinting with mischief. Jason's gaze shifted between Sam and me, his smirk widening. "I dare you to kiss the person sitting across from you," he said, his voice low, almost teasing. I froze. The room seemed to shift, the background noise of the others fading as my focus honed in on Jason. My mind raced. The dare was innocent enough. No one had ever gotten seriously embarrassed over a simple kiss, right? But the way he said it, the way his eyes never left mine, made everything feel different. The playful, lighthearted atmosphere from earlier now felt like it had vanished, replaced by something heavier, more dangerous. I looked around the room, at the people I called my friends, and I could feel their eyes on me, waiting for my reaction. Sam was smirking, clearly enjoying the tension. But I wasn't sure if I was ready to cross that line with Jason, especially when my body was betraying me, reacting to the situation in a way I didn't fully understand. Jason leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms, his gaze still locked on me. "What's the matter?" "Chicken," he teased, his voice smooth, almost taunting. I hated that word. I hated the way he said it, how it dug under my skin and made my pulse spike with something that could only be described as a mixture of excitement and anxiety. I could feel my heart hammering in my chest, my palms suddenly clammy as I struggled to find the words. Part of me wanted to tell him to shut up, to laugh it off like it was just a joke. But the other part, the part that had been growing since the moment he walked in, wanted to lean into the dare, to give in to the strange pull between us that I could no longer deny. Sam's voice broke through my internal struggle. "Come on, just do it," she said, clearly not noticing the change in the air. "It's just a kiss. We're all friends, right?" Jason's eyes never wavered. He was watching me closely now, almost like he was daring me to make a move. I could feel the intensity in the air, thick and palpable. My breath hitched, and before I could stop myself, I found myself standing up, crossing the room, my legs trembling with the anticipation of what was about to happen. I sat down across from Jason, the space between us suddenly feeling much too small. My hand hovered for a second, unsure, but I could feel his gaze on me, steady and unyielding. Slowly, I leaned in, my heart pounding in my chest. The kiss itself was brief, soft, a mere brush of lips, but the electricity that surged between us was anything but innocent. I pulled away quickly, my face burning with a mixture of embarrassment and something else. Something I couldn't place. But Jason didn't seem embarrassed. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, a smug smile curling at the corners of his lips. "See? That wasn't so hard, was it?" I wanted to look away, to hide my face from the burning scrutiny of my friends, but I couldn't. His eyes were still on me, studying me as if he knew exactly what was going on inside my head. The game had just gotten a lot more complicated. And that small kiss? It had opened a door I didn't know how to close. The room felt heavier after that kiss, and I couldn't shake the sensation that something had shifted between Jason and me. My lips still tingled from the brief contact, and despite how innocuous the kiss had been in the grand scheme of things, I couldn't ignore the way my body was reacting. Every glance, every flicker of his gaze across the room made my heart race in a way I had never experienced before. I was aware of every part of him, his broad shoulders, the way his lips curved into that teasing grin, the subtle, controlled way he moved. But most of all, I was acutely aware of the tension hanging between us, thick and electric. Sam, of course, didn't notice. She was busy laughing with our other friends, oblivious to the strange change in the air. But I couldn't ignore it. Every time I looked at Jason, it felt like I was drowning in a sea of unspoken words, of things that neither of us dared to voice. I tried to tell myself that it was just the alcohol talking, just the silly dares we had been throwing around for the night. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. Jason leaned back in his chair, his eyes now focused entirely on me. I could feel the heat of his stare, how it seemed to pull at me, urging me to break the invisible barrier that had suddenly formed between us. There was a subtle power in his gaze, an undeniable pull that made me feel as if I was losing control. His lips parted slightly, like he was about to say something, but then he remained silent, watching me, letting the weight of the moment hang in the air. It was unbearable. "Come on," Jason's voice was low, smooth, a challenge laced with something else, something darker. "You're not going to let it stop there, are you?" The words hit me like a wave, washing away whatever resolve I had left. I opened my mouth to say something, but no words came. My body seemed to have taken over, my heart pounding, and before I knew it, I was standing up again, moving towards him without fully thinking about it. It was like I couldn't help myself. Every step I took seemed to bring me closer to something I hadn't planned for, something far more complicated than a simple kiss. Jason stood as well, his eyes never leaving mine, a knowing look in them. He didn't speak, just stepped forward, closing the distance between us until there was barely an inch left. I could feel his body heat radiating toward me, the tension between us nearly unbearable. My breathing had grown shallow, my mind foggy with desire and confusion. This wasn't just a game anymore. This wasn't some innocent dare that I could brush off. This was real. And somehow I knew that after this, things would never be the same between us. "Do you want to stop?" he asked, his voice soft but laced with a quiet challenge. I could feel the weight of his question, the subtle pressure behind it, urging me to make a choice. But I couldn't. My hands, almost on their own accord, reached up to his chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart beneath the fabric of his shirt. The contact was electric. I pulled him closer, my lips brushing against his, not a soft, innocent peck this time, but a deeper, more urgent kiss. It was like everything inside me was finally breaking free, surrendering to the tension that had been building between us for so long. Jason's hand slid to my back, pulling me even closer until our bodies were flush against each other. I could feel the heat radiating off him, his body hard against mine. He groaned softly as I deepened the kiss, my fingers curling into the fabric of his shirt. Everything felt heightened, his every move, every touch, felt like it was igniting something inside of me, something I couldn't control. The kiss grew more intense, more desperate, as though we were both trying to consume each other, to fill the space between us that had been growing all night. I could feel the growing pressure in my chest, the rapid thudding of my heart, and the desire that surged through me with each passing second. Jason's hand slid lower, tracing the curve of my waist, sending shivers through my body. His touch was rough, possessive, but there was something comforting in it. He knew what he was doing. He knew how to make me feel every inch of him, every movement of his body. I pulled away, gasping for air, my mind racing. What was happening? Why couldn't I stop myself from wanting more? Jason's eyes were dark, filled with something dangerous and hungry. "Are you sure you want this?" he whispered, his breath hot against my ear. I didn't trust myself to speak, but I didn't need to. I knew exactly what I wanted. The words were out of my mouth before I could stop them. "Yes!" Without another word, he captured my lips again, this time with more urgency, more hunger. His hands moved to my hips, lifting me effortlessly as he walked me backward toward the couch. I barely registered the movement, too lost in the feel of him, the taste of him, as his lips trailed down my neck, leaving a trail of heat in their wake. I could feel my body responding to every touch, every kiss. The world outside the room ceased to exist. It was just Jason and me, locked in this moment, the intensity between us nearly unbearable. I knew this was dangerous, knew that once we crossed this line, there was no going back. But I couldn't bring myself to care. Everything else had faded into the background. When we finally collapsed onto the couch, I was already out of breath, my body tingling with the aftermath of the kiss. Jason's lips hovered over mine, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he looked at me with something akin to admiration. But there was no time for words. There was only the overwhelming need to be closer, to feel more of him. He pulled me to him again, kissing me deeply, as if to claim me, as if this moment was long overdue. I responded without hesitation, my hands roaming across his chest, feeling the muscles beneath his shirt, the warmth of his skin. The intensity of the kiss only escalated, and soon, the space between us was gone entirely. My breath caught as I felt him move against me, and the world outside seemed to blur, fading into nothing. I knew we had crossed a line. I knew that nothing would ever be the same. But right then, in that moment, I didn't care. The game was over, and the consequences didn't matter. What mattered was the undeniable chemistry between us, the pull that had been building since the first dare, since the first kiss. And as we finally gave into it completely, I realized that sometimes, the most dangerous games were the ones you never saw coming.